if Louis Gohmert is the bottom rung of the Republican Party, about half a rung up, you have people like Matt Gaetz, who during an appearance on Newsmax show Cortez and Pellegrino, which I'm just learning exists, Matt Gaetz said he believed that the FBI might have had a role in organizing and participating in the attack on the 6th. Here we go. And had written a letter to FBI Director Christopher Wray to demand answers. He says the FBI clearly doesn't have objections to selective releases of video and images from these days, but it begs the question, why is there not more transparency? What did the FBI know and when did they know it? Which is just every stupid person just puts that at the end of their questions to sound smart and historic or whatever. And Matt Gaetz is the one who goes on, I believe he did this on Twitter, where he is like, well, you know, the FBI, they infiltrated groups like, for instance, in the civil rights movement, which is totally true. He doesn't give a damn about it, but it's true. And it's like, is there anything worse than weaponizing accurate historical information to push something that, while theoretically possible, like the FBI being involved in that, he has no reason to actually believe? Why does Matt Gaetz have questions? Because he watched Tucker Carlson. I guarantee there is literally nothing beyond that. But it's enough that you now have another congressperson that's pushing for this. And we have a third. Marjorie Greene says we need names and answers about the FBI operatives who were involved in organizing and carrying out. She's not saying we need to know if they were. She's saying we need to know which ones did because they did. And she says that there was a backup plan to stop Trump in Russia collusion witch hunt, which is grammatically fun. Now we are finding out they were deeply involved in January 6th. So it's been, I don't even think it's been 3 days. Tucker Carlson said, is it possible they were involved? Now she's saying they were deeply involved. So by Sunday, what will be left of any of this?
Yeah, so John, first of all, they're the deep state. If they're gonna get involved, it's gonna be deeply.
That's true.
Second of all, you mispronounced Marjorie Taylor Greene. And thirdly, now going to why they're going to this, back to why they're going to this in the first place. Look, so the FBI has two elements to it that are going to relate to the story. One is, do they have a history of spying in on protesters? Absolutely. We've all said it during the civil rights era, they were horrible. And when they were led by J. Edgar Hoover, they weren't trying to ferret out crime, they were just trying to basically suppress and oppress anyone that wasn't white right-wingers. And that's not hyperbole, that's a fact. And if you don't know that, you don't know anything about American history. And they had Fred Hampton murdered, and we can go on and on, right? Nowadays, the FBI is more of a machine. That doesn't mean that, oh great, they don't do anything wrong. No, they, after 9/11, they investigated Muslims that were perfectly innocent, et cetera, et cetera. But lately, the FBI has actually caught a bunch of white supremacist terrorists. And I've given them credit on the show a number of times for that. Hey, look, they stopped a bombing. They had the truck full of bombs. They were going to go there and they were going to blow up a building in the middle of the country. And the FBI stopped that, so thank you. We don't want buildings blown up, right? And they've stopped Muslim terrorists too, but lately, unfortunately, there's been way more white supremacist terrorists. Now, all of a sudden, FBI becomes the enemy. When they're spying in on black people, they're awesome and wonderful, and Blue Lives Matter and cops and law enforcement and law and order. They stop white supremacist literal terrorists, right? I'm not even talking about January 6th. I'm talking about all the other white supremacists. They say, oh, they were about to bomb a synagogue. They were about to bomb a building they thought had immigrants in it, et cetera, right? I don't know about this FBI. It looks a little like deep state to me, right? Now, the second part of it is, I hope to God that the FBI had informants inside Oath Keepers and Proud Boys. If you're not infiltrating those groups that are constantly saying online, we want to do violence, right? Not everybody in those groups says it, but a lot of them say it, and their leaders say it, and they revel in it. In order to get into Proud Boys, you have to go through a violent initiation, et cetera, but that's the least of it. And so now there's 36 people who were arrested, involved in January 6th, involved in those groups, et cetera. So if the FBI is doing their job, they are not infiltrating random right-wing groups. I would hate that. No matter how much I disagree with the groups, I would not want the FBI infiltrating anything like that, right? But if there is specific actionable intelligence that they can prove to a court to get a warrant or whatever else they need, that somebody's going to commit violence, that is exactly what the FBI is supposed to investigate. And so that's why in a conspiracy theory, you only need one or two things to seem like they're going in your direction. So Tucker's actually being kind of smart about this. He says it's the FBI. later we'll find out that the FBI, of course, had informants inside. Oath Keepers is potentially one of the most violent groups in America, right? And so once you find out that the FBI had an informant inside Oath Keepers, what's Tucker gonna come out and say? Aha! I told you.
When that was not what he claimed.
That is not what he claimed, right? But he's gonna say, and every knucklehead right winger is gonna be like, aha, FBI has informants. Yeah, FBI has informants, we all know that. And they should have informants in violent groups, right? But that doesn't mean they planned the Capitol riot. That doesn't make any sense. But every conspiracy theorist will not only, this is write it down in stone. You will see this all over social media. The minute there's any story about an FBI informant, every right winger on social media will be like, you guys thought we were crazy. And the FBI has informants inside these groups, so they obviously planned it along with the tourists. Okay.
Well, look, the only other thing I want to say about this, because I want to play this last video, is, and I think maybe this is obvious. I don't know. Sometimes I think I need to see. Alex Jones said that he was part of spreading. He told Trump that it was the FBI or something, right? So there's a link to Alex Jones, but I think the link is actually more significant than that. All this is a savvy version of it was a false flag. That's all it is. So in the same way that you might have heard that QAnon is going away because they don't use the term QAnon very much anymore. They don't necessarily talk about the Great Storm. They've taken away some of the rhetoric that were considered sort of the symbols of QAnon, but those communities are still around, those people are still around, the conspiracy theory continues. They figured out that saying false flag makes you look like a crazy person. But if you just say the FBI did that insurrection, well, you're being more specific and you're on TV after all. Maybe there's something to it. All this is they took Alex Jones, who is way too crazy. People aren't gonna pay attention to him. They're not gonna give him any credibility. But Tucker Carlson's on TV and he avoided some of the buzzwords. And now we have multiple Congress people all saying it was a false flag until you prove that it wasn't, about an attack that left multiple people dead. So that's how the right wing is evolving. They've taken the craziest fringe radicals, they've washed it 5%, and now it's on TV, and millions more Americans will believe that that sort of stuff is true.
Last thing I'm gonna say about this, this all began with Tucker Carlson saying some of the people the government has not charged yet are unindicted co-conspirators, hence they must be FBI. That's totally false, but I just wanted to point out one more time. Donald Trump was an unindicted co-conspirator of Michael Cohen in the Stormy Daniels case. So Trump is the FBI and hence the deep state.
That's how deep it is.
Oh my God, the call's coming from inside the house.
Anyway, Jesus. Okay.
And most importantly, guys, what's most important about these conspiracies and everything else, they're distractions. You don't gotta talk about how you feel, Marjorie Taylor Greene, about the infrastructure bill. You don't gotta talk about how you feel about the state of American work, getting Americans back to work and decent paying jobs.
Yeah.
Why would you ever talk about that when you can peddle nonsense about the FBI plotting against you and your QAnon homies?
That is true. That is very true. Now it's the FBI in a little bit of critical race theory, which we're gonna talk about in a minute. It was Mr. Potato Head, Dr. Seuss before. Like, at least it's changing. They're keeping things fresh.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.